The first day after the bye did not bring any calm, and Mike McDaniel made sure the air in the building stayed charged. The moment he walked into that room filled with reporters, you could almost sense he had carried every detail of the past 2 weeks on his shoulders. Yet he spoke as if he was ready to push everything forward in one breath. The Dolphins are heading into a matchup with the New Orleans Saints that could twist the team's momentum in either direction, and McDaniel did not pretend otherwise. He knows the stakes. Everyone knows the stakes. And maybe that is exactly why the conversation started drifting immediately toward the players, hovering between absence and return, those who could tilt the field the moment they stepped back onto it. He did not rush to give reassuring answers. He let the uncertainty hang there, because that is how this team has lived lately, waiting for glimpses of good news, trying to measure how much hope can be trusted. When Darren Waller's name came up, McDaniel allowed a small moment of recognition, as if he had been waiting for that question before anyone even voiced it. Waller's return window, he said, will open Wednesday. That single line carried more weight than anything else said in the early minutes of that conversation. After missing 4 games, and after the unusual rhythm the offense has had to adopt without him, the mere possibility of his silhouette back on the field made everything feel slightly different. Waller has been recovering from a pectoral injury, and even with the time missed, he remains tied for second on the team in touchdown receptions. There's almost something unreal about that. A player who has not touched the field in a month still sits right behind Jalen Waddle in the scoring department. It makes you wonder, how much has this offense been holding its breath waiting for that extra spark? How much changes when he lines up again? If Waddle has been carrying the edge alone, what happens when Waller is standing right there with him? The room seemed to pause for a second as McDaniel spoke, maybe because everyone remembered what this offense looks like when it has all its pieces moving at once. When the attention shifted to James Daniels, McDaniel's tone changed. There was no timetable, no clock to point toward, nothing to lean on except patience. For a team that has been trying to plug holes and maintain rhythm at the same time, the absence of a clear projection felt like another reminder that the season doesn't unfold at anyone's preferred pace. Daniels has been missed, and there's no mystery there. McDaniel chose his words carefully, but even in his restraint, the disappointment was easy to notice. If Waller's situation feels like a door ready to be opened, Daniels feels like a hallway with no light. Then came the name that has been floating around almost daily, Jason Sanders. This one brought a bit more optimism. The Dolphins, according to McDaniel, are getting closer with the kicker. That simple phrase carried a sense of steady movement, something real enough for the team to hold on to. Sanders has been working his way back, and McDaniel's wording hinted that the gap between now and his return is shrinking. But how soon? How quickly can he be trusted again in game situations? Nobody pressed for a specific date, maybe because everyone already understands that these final weeks are delicate. One wrong push, one premature return, and the whole trajectory changes. The discussion then drifted toward one of the most looked-at players in recent weeks, Austin Jackson. The right tackle has been trying to re-enter the flow, and McDaniel spoke of him with a kind of quiet excitement. Jackson has, in McDaniel's words, more opportunities this week to integrate back into the offense, and you could feel how genuinely eager the coach is to see what this progression looks like. Not hopeful, eager. That's a different kind of energy. But even with all that enthusiasm, McDaniel did not paint it as a simple plug-and-play situation. When asked what happens to Larry Borom, who has been holding down right tackle during Jackson's absence, McDaniel did not hide the complexity. He admitted he had reservations about expecting Jackson to jump back in during Week 13 and play every snap without restriction. He even floated the idea of rotating the two, something that might raise eyebrows among fans who prefer stability on the line, but also something that might be completely necessary given how physical the position is. Does a rotation at right tackle disrupt rhythm, or does it actually give the line more durability heading into the final stretch? The answer may depend not on preference, but on how quickly Jackson's body can handle real game tempo. The offensive line remained a focal point, and soon the conversation stretched to Andrew Meyer and Liam Eichenberg. For Meyer, McDaniel said the window would open at some point, a phrase that felt intentionally vague, as if he didn't want to commit to a moment that he wasn't fully confident about. It left everyone wondering, what does some point actually mean? Is it days? Weeks? Later than anyone wants to admit? As for Eichenberg, there was nothing new at all. No update. No shift. Just silence on that front. And that silence felt louder than any statement he could have made. And then, almost out of nowhere, came a burst of energy when the name Daniel Brunskill surfaced. If there was a moment where McDaniel allowed himself to show pure delight, it was this one. Someone asked who came up with the idea to use 6 offensive linemen and slide Brunskill into that unusual configuration. McDaniel's response was half serious, half playful. "You think it's a good idea?" And when the reporter said yes, McDaniel grinned and joked, "I definitely thought of it." But the humor dissolved quickly, and he gave full credit to offensive coordinator Frank Smith and assistants Bobby Slowick and Butch Berry. He called their collaboration an example of how a coaching staff should function, and the pride in his voice revealed just how much he values that synergy. Brunskill himself became almost legendary in the way McDaniel spoke of him. He recalled Brunskill showing up in San Francisco years ago, wearing an oversized jersey for a tryout, looking like someone who wasn't sure where he belonged, and then turning in a workout that left no doubts at all. McDaniel described how Brunskill never approached a block without confidence, how his mental resilience shaped his career, how he seized every chance, no matter how small. There was admiration in every line. There was also a message that players like Brunskill rewrite their own stories because they refuse to let expectations limit them. McDaniel even said one of his favorite types of NFL players are the ones whose careers would not exist if they had listened to what others said about them. Brunskill fits that description perfectly. Soon, the conversation slipped into something broader, leadership. Not just captains, but the team's leadership council. McDaniel explained that the council exists because leadership does not end with the players who wear the C. Some voices in a locker room carry weight without any official label, and he wanted to create a structure that recognized that. The council meets weekly, sometimes at the start of the week, sometimes at the end if something needs to be addressed. It functions as an extension of the captains, gathering players who may not have a letter on their chest, but whose presence shapes the team's direction just as strongly. McDaniel made it clear that he relies on the council as much as he relies on the captains. There was something deeply honest about that. Some teams pretend leadership is spotless and perfectly defined. McDaniel acknowledged that real leadership is messier, more layered, more dependent on the dynamics between personalities that don't always fit into neat categories. It made you wonder which players sit in that room each week, offering thoughts that might shift how the team prepares for the next challenge. It also made you wonder whether this mixture of voices, formal and informal leaders, could be one of the hidden strengths of this Dolphins roster. By the time the session wrapped, one thing had become clear. The Dolphins are standing in a moment where the return of a few key players could twist the entire energy of the season. Waller's window opening, Sanders inching closer, Jackson ramping up, Brunskill expanding his role, the leadership council shaping the tone internally. None of these pieces are isolated, and McDaniel did not speak like a coach who thinks the story of this season is fixed. He spoke like someone who believes the shape of the team is shifting again, and that shift could arrive exactly when everything tightens. The Saints are coming. The season is tightening, and somewhere inside that building, players are preparing to step back onto the field after weeks of waiting. The question that lingers now is simple. When the door opens for them, what happens to everything around them?